Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. Alright, let's go ahead and we'll talk about the next set of crazy urban legends here, the kind of stuff that people still believe in to this day, and matching the idea that I spoke about 2 videos back about a flat earth. Rather than talking about a flat earth, we'll talk about another different type of earth that people believe exists today. And I've heard of this urban legend before, even way before I even did my YouTube videos. I just never really looked into it because it just seems like it's kind of out there. Like this isn't, it's hard to believe that people still believe it, but they do. And it has to do with the idea that the earth is not what it is as it seems. Instead, it is hollow. So rather than being filled with, let's say, the mantle, the core, and the lava, everything consisting of what you and I would think science has told us all along with regards to the earth. Nope, there are people that believe to this day that the earth is hollow. So I'll explain some of the various theories as to why the earth is hollow because they're not all the same. They actually branch out into several different ways. And then I'll try to cover it with the idea of, let's say, science and how it kind of proves that even though we can't physically see most of the earth inside it, science can still pretty much proclaim and state what it should be altogether. So first, the idea of a hollow earth has been around for a long, long time, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. There's been talk about it and the debate about it since I mean, there's so much information I couldn't even find like the first source as to when it came about. But what was interesting to find out was that it branches into several different theories as to why the earth is hollow. The predominant one seems to be that the earth is hollow because it actually contains, either in some cases, an advanced civilization living right underneath us. In other cases, it's actually sub-advanced, where they're behind us, in other words, in their advancements. That's one theory. The other theory is that it's hollow because it houses paranormal, I'm sorry, not paranormal, but UFO related stuff. And that's where the idea of aliens, instead of them coming from far, far away, let's say other galaxies, other universes, wherever, instead they're actually much, much closer. Kind of like the War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise movie, where they're actually right here on Earth already. And in this case, they just happen to live in the hollow Earth. And then finally, there's the idea that the Earth is hollow because it just is hollow. In other words, it's reverse. It's a concave hollow Earth where it's reversed, where we live on the outer edges, but the universe lives in the center. That's really out there, and I'll explain that as the last one. And then I'll cover some of the theories as to how science just kind of proves everything wrong altogether. First thing, the predominant theory that the Earth being hollow is because it advances some kind of civilization within it. It has to do with the idea that either there used to be some cultures that lived on this earth a long time ago, millions of years in fact. They lived on top of the earth, but for whatever reason, either through wars or either through their own decision, they decided to move inside the earth. And they were able to do so because they were one of the early people or civilizations to find out that the earth is hollow, so it allows them to do so. This race, by the way, of underground dwellers, the most common name associated with them is Agartha. And the reason why they're called this is because it's from the name of some guy by the name of Olaf Jansen. He apparently was a Norwegian sailor who created a book called Agartha: Secrets of the Subterranean Cities, and he had it written, and he was able to proclaim all this information about this advanced civilization living in Hollow Earth was because he lived with them. He said he actually discovered the entrance to the Earth's interior somewhere along the lines of North Pole. I don't know if he found it either by accident or he was actively looking for it, but he found it, and when he did so, he was able to live with this civilization for about 2 years. And apparently they went there because they were trying to escape some kind of conflict, some kind of war with another civilization called the Nagas. And they were also a race of some sort that were waging a war on the kingdom of Agartha. So in any case, he lived there. He described them as being a civilization where the people there were actually about 12 feet tall and that they had their own sun. So the reason why they could live and prosper has a civilization underneath the earth instead of, let's say, becoming golems altogether, was because that's the center of the earth actually has its own type of sun. It's what he described it as, a smoky central sun of sorts. But yeah, he lived there with them for 12 years. He saw their colonies. They have their own governments of sorts. Basically, they are people, i.e., you and me, but instead of just living on top of the earth, they live in this hollow earth. And he chronicled all this again in his book. Some of the interests that apparently lead to this large civilization, some of them are here in the U.S., some of them are overseas. Like, for example, if you're in Kentucky, there's a mammoth cave of some sort called the Kentucky Mammoth Cave that supposedly houses one of the entrances to the location. I don't know about that. There's in California a place called Mount Shasta, which also houses one of the entrances to Agartha. If you're in Italy, there's another mountain called Mount Epomeo that houses this as well. Tibet is another entrance to this civilization. And in fact, it's said that the Hindu monks religiously guard the entrance. They know about the civilization. In fact, they call it an underground city of Shanxi within the Agarthans, and it's there located, the entrance, in the Himalayan mountains. Egypt as well, the Pyramid of Gaza is presumably part of the reason why it was built, was because it was a way to block or hide some of the places leading into this advanced civilization. And then, of course, the North and South Poles remain some of the most commonly used entrances. The way that these people are described, they live there to this day. They just sometimes come out. Most of the time they don't. And in fact, they try to make sure that they do not make anyone else aware of those entrances. They just live underground altogether. So that's one theory with regards to the hollow earth. The idea that it houses, and the reason why it's hollow is because it has its own sun, and it houses some form of civilization there. There's even talk about other races, like beings called the Old Ones, that were an ancient race that populated the above Earth millions of years back, and then also another one called the Elder Race. Crazy stuff. I mean, it's stuff that I don't think anyone can have any proof given as to anything, but somehow the idea of it still lasts to this day. Now, the second theory as to why the Earth is hollow has to do more with the fact that it's a place either for UFOs or some kind of aliens that live. This permeates because you have the theories that all these UFOs that people see around this world, especially in some cases the UFOs that descend into water-like areas, whether it's diving into the ocean or going into some place like, let's say, a river, or coming out of some kind of lake altogether. The reason why they're able to do so, and to do so quite well, quite frequently, without really having anybody being able to follow them to and from, is because their entrances are in those places where they're very, very inaccessible. And that these beings, whatever these are, these aliens, these UFOs, they live or have places within the Earth itself. So the Earth is hollow enough for them to allow them to create some kind of civilization and basically live among us. I guess the nicest way to compare it to is that James Cameron movie, The Abyss. The idea that you had something like a very advanced alien-like species of some sort, basically living on the bottom of the ocean, and then who knows how many entrances they had elsewhere leading into it as well. That was how it could happen altogether. I don't know about this. I mean, someone would have to point me to more concrete examples of known places. I tried to see if there were areas, kind of like where I was just describing, where the Agartha network, where the entrances to their area is located. If someone could point to more examples along the lines of aliens and UFOs where known places of those are, I'd be happy to see, or post them in the comments below as well, because if you wanted to share that info, it'd be great to do so. But that's another theory altogether. And then just very, very lightly, I'll touch upon the idea, because it has to do more with religious stuff. And as I mentioned in my past videos, anything involving religion, I don't really like to touch upon too much because it is a sensitive subject for some. But the reason why the Earth is hollow is not because of aliens, but because it is hell. It's purgatory. It's the idea that at the bottom, I'm sorry, in the middle of the earth itself, that's where everyone who, let's say, creates bad sins or does bad sins for most of their life, and they're not able to have salvation. They're the ones that go and basically go to hell. And then that's why the center of the earth is hollow, because that's where hell is altogether. That's completely up for something else to talk about. I don't really want to touch about too much, but that's another theory besides the aliens as to why it's hollow. And now for one of the craziest ones, and it has to do with the idea that the earth is hollow because it's actually a concave hollowness. And this is a picture as a perfect example. We as humans apparently live in the inside of a sphere. And so our Earth is the inside, the outside inside of the sphere itself. And as we look up, we're actually looking towards the interior of this Earth, and the interior of it actually consists of the universe. And already I know you're thinking, because I was thinking immediately when I heard this information too, it's like, how can this be? Because clearly we have not only satellites that can see who knows how many millions of light years out in terms of distance, but also we have sent objects, satellites, Voyager, comes to example, that has gone well beyond, if I remember correctly, beyond the solar system itself. And that distance alone would clearly outdistance anything involving looking towards the inside of the Earth. But looking at more information, the way supposedly that the people that believe this state, the reason why this is because as light travels within this hollow Earth, it travels following a circular pattern. And so the longer that circular pattern of light goes inward, the longer that path becomes, to the point where when you actually have light going more towards the center, it almost becomes like an infinite distance. And so that's why we could look upwards inside this hollow Earth and not see, like, let's say, a wall of the next side of the hollow Earth, but instead see infinite space, which is space itself. I hope I explained that as best as I could, because that's how it seemed like to me. Like if you've ever seen those cool little machines that are located in some quirky places where you take a nickel and you roll it, and it rolls towards the inside of a sphere, and the quicker it goes inside the sphere, the faster it rolls. Same idea, except it's reverse. Instead of light going faster, it goes slower because it's longer, until the point again where towards the middle it's more of an infinite space of sorts. It's really out there. I mean, this is by far the craziest idea that the religion of the hollow earth happening is because of this. And if anyone has any more information with regards to this, that'll be interesting to see. Apparently, but there's been no citation of it, so this is, take it with a grain of salt, but this was one of the ideas that Adolf Hitler himself kind of championed and was interested in. He believed in the concave hollow earth idea, and that's why he was trying to, apparently, he's dedicated some department to try to look up that information and see what comes about from it. Obviously nothing came, but that was what was happening apparently back in World War II. Now, with regards to the scientific evidence that seems to point that yes, indeed, the earth is not hollow, it's filled, it's completely filled altogether. Science can point towards various things, and this all comes from the fact that we cannot obviously slice the earth in half and take a look inside. It's not like we know exactly like how humans look on the inside, because we can take the body of one for scientific purposes, like a corpse, and look inside and see it. We don't have anything like that on the earth side, but science can still prove it, because the most obvious glaring reason has to be seismic measures. Anything involving the release of energy from earthquakes, the way that they're tracked and the way that they travel throughout the earth, they can create a kind of loose picture of sorts that showcase how the earth should look based on how, let's say, those waves are bouncing back. It's the same theory how we cannot see the bottom of the ocean, but we can use things that create some kind of radar that bounce off the bottom of the ocean to create a pretty clear picture of how the ocean looks on the bottom. In other words, where the plateaus are, where the bottoms are, where the spikes indicating caverns and so forth are. That's the same way with the seismic waves associated with earthquakes. And the idea is, if the Earth was truly hollow, then these seismic waves would be traveling much, much faster than they are now. But because the Earth is filled with solid rock, with anything involving the mantle, the crust, the lava, everything associated with the inner core of the Earth, then it has to travel through that thick material, and that creates the distance that it has now. So that proves that anything involving seismic waves can showcase what's truly inside the Earth. The other theory is gravity itself. The idea that there's a hollow Earth would not be true with how gravity is right now. And this is how it works. Anything involving a planet or any other type of large object, it has to be dense in the middle in order for gravity to work, because gravity is pulling things towards the planet itself. It's how we stay on Earth, and then it's how the moon stays in proportion to the Earth itself. If instead it were hollow, then there wouldn't be that force, that enough force of gravity to hold things together. Instead, we would probably be either floating all out altogether, or our atmosphere would have to be much, much stronger to holding us down. Because, for example, like the moon, obviously is made of solid rock, but its gravity it's much looser because of its atmosphere. Same thing here with the Earth. If we didn't have that solid inside, then our atmosphere must be much thicker than it is right now. But in both cases, obviously, the Earth is filled. And then on top of that, if the Earth were truly hollow and gravity is as it is now, then we would actually be imploding within ourselves, because apparently the idea is that the hollowness of the Earth, with the gravity strength outside it, it would simply collapse within one another, and that of course would be a huge problem, and that's why we don't happen to have anything related to this occurring. Finally, there's actual visual proof of some sort. The deepest known drill to this date is something called the Z44 Chivo oil well, and it has a depth, it's really large. It's about 40,604 feet. And so it extends towards one part of the crust and beyond it altogether. And it's pretty cool because it's the deepest known oil drill right now as of this part. And it was able, based on what the people there were drilling, as they were taking out the materials, they did not run into, in other words, pockets of air showcasing hollowness, but rather they ran into the usual stuff: rock, dirt, materials, other type of things normally associated with the crust and then underneath the crust of the Earth. So that's another representation. Now obviously that doesn't extend, and there's no drill that goes towards the center of the Earth itself, but everything else that I just mentioned, especially the seismic part, that pretty much well points to things being good when it comes to the Earth being filled, in other words, i.e. not hollow. But yes, those are the theories of hollow Earth. Either it's a civilization of sorts that lives inside the Earth itself, or several civilizations, or it houses anything involving aliens or demons, or hell itself is another theory as to why the Earth is hollow. Or finally, it's hollow because we're just looking inwards at our own universe through the inside of the Earth. But those are the theories are about. I'm sure there's more out there, so if anyone has more information with regards to that, please post those comments, share below. It'd be great to hear with regards to some of the other things that I did not cover here. So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care, bye.